Welcome to Reshair on ESPN 730. For the next hour, your host, Chris Reshaar, will bring fresh air to your financial needs. Excite, educate, and empower you to make sound financial decisions. Chris is a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender, originator license number 117266. Now, here's your host, Chris Reshaar.
Good morning, Charlotte. Chris Reshaar here, back for another show of Reshair Radio. If you have never listened to the show, I'm obviously your host. I am a senior loan officer with Movement Mortgage, and I work for a company that is awesome. We're headquartered right here out of Charlotte/Lancaster, South Carolina now as our location, but Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender, and our license number is 117266. Just got to make sure I get that in there. But again, if you listen to our intro, the goal of the show is to excite, educate, and empower Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. And we're here each and every week bringing area experts, expert contributors, you name it. We bring them into the studio. We talk about hot topics that are happening out locally, and we bring them to you each and every week. So I'm excited about another show. I've got two guests in the studio today. I'd like to go ahead and officially welcome both of them to the show. We've got Ed Averette from Fathom Realty. Welcome, Ed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
And we've got repeat offender, expert contributor, Sandy Solomon with Axe Advisors. Welcome back, Sandy.
Hi, Chris. I'm happy to be back.
All right. So, before we sort of jump into our topics, our listeners are used to hearing a little bit about the guests that I have on the show. And Ed, you actually are a licensed realtor. You've got just under 10 years in the business.
Yes. I've been in the business almost 10 years now.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And you're licensed in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. When are you going to get Florida? Because that's like you're moving down, man.
I'm actually working on that now.
Oh,
so,
you are? Okay,
yes.
Great. So you've got that. I know you are a short sale specialist.
Yes.
I know that you like working with first-time buyers as well. But what I want our listeners to know is also you are what we call a hometown hero specialist. What is that?
Yes, well, I specialize in working with anyone that serves the community. For example, anyone that's in the medical field, police officer, educational field, firefighter, or in the government. What they'll get is they'll get a special discount because of their services. It's just a way of me giving
you're
back.
willing to give part of your commission essentially to help those civic servants, public servants, if you will, buy a home or sell a home.
Absolutely. That's our way of giving back to the community. Me being a former veteran myself, that's the least that we can do.
Awesome. Well, that's great. And I think our listeners need to know that if they're looking for a great agent particularly if they've been a public servant of any kind or military, you've got their back and you're giving some of your hard-earned commissions back to them to help them buy or sell a property. So that's huge. I really appreciate you sharing that. So how did you get started in real estate?
Well, I worked as a local sales rep with a local security company. Had interactions with a lot of realtors. In addition, I had some rental properties, so I was enjoying the equity and was very intrigued by that. I also had a bad experience with a realtor, so I saw that realtor.
It's never been a realtor on my show.
No. So I was able to look at that realtor and just see different things that they did that I would have done differently. And it kind of helped inspire me.
I think that's really powerful because I think we've all had experiences where maybe we didn't get the service levels we deserved, and we kind of took the, bull by the horns, as they say, right, and figured it out, and you went and got licensed yourself and figured I can do this as good as anybody else. So that's Absolutely. Cool. I mean, that's motivation, really.
Absolutely.
So, all right, well, all that kind of led to you getting your license as a realtor. What do you really like most about being a realtor?
What I love about it is just to help someone achieve their dream of being a homeowner, especially if they didn't know they can achieve that. So I love seeing hardworking individuals achieve the American dream. So you work hard every day, right? So you want to have something to show for it. Yeah,
and there's more to it, right? I always tell people there are some clients' loans that I could have cared less if I got paid a commission or not, right? Because we're 100% commission. I always tell people my base salary is lower than yours because my base salary is zero, right?
Right, absolutely.
But, commissions are great, but some people, it's just the joy of helping them achieve home ownership, particularly those that didn't think maybe they could do it, right?
Right.
And or maybe had challenges with their credit or or couldn't find the right kind of property, it makes it totally worth it. So good stuff. All right. So we kind of have a Halloween theme going here today, since we've got Halloween happening this just really tomorrow, right? Yes. We'll kind of go back to our theme here in just a little bit, Ed, that we've got going with you. But I'd like to kind of make sure that we get Sandy Solomon with Axe Advisors reintroduced again. He is an expert contributor. Sandy, you're on the show every month. That's pretty cool stuff.
And I'm enjoying it, Chris. It's great to be here.
Great. So, really, I wanted to make sure that Reshair Radio had a topic that we could bring each and every week that was more financial minded, where we had a financial advisor like yourself really bring something of value. Because, I know a little bit about a lot of financial topics, but I'm not licensed like you. I don't have the experience that you do. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do?
Well, Chris, I represent Axe Advisors here in Charlotte. I'm a registered representative. I have a CHFC and CLU designation from the American College. And we essentially do three things for our clients. For our clients that are at or near retirement, we help them with the design of a sustainable and predictable lifelong income that includes an analysis of their current situation, their asset allocation, a proper liquidation order of assets in retirement. For our young families, we help them with the creation and implementation of a comprehensive plan for financial independence. And that includes helping them with proper risk management, income for survivors, education funding for their children, and a sustainable income in retirement. And then for our business owner clients, we help them with business succession planning and executive benefits, employee benefits, key man coverages, and things like that.
Ed, do you think I have the right guy on the show?
I do.
Because I couldn't say that again if even I had to read it in front of me, Sandy. But wow, that's a lot. So you're really helping people that are phasing into retirement, young people that are planning way ahead of time, and then really business professionals that need to plan for their business. And there's so many components to that. And that's why you're here. Each and every week, we're going to break down one component under one category and bring something simple to our listeners that they can connect with. And we're going to be talking a little bit about IRAs later on in the show. I'm really excited about that because I think a lot of people know a lot about nothing when it comes to IRAs. Does that make sense, Andy?
It does to me, yes.
At least they think they do, but I can tell you I think I know a lot about IRAs, but in reality, after I sit down with you, I learned that I really don't know that much, and working with a professional like you is so valuable, and we're going to talk a lot about that a little bit later in the show. So before we sort of slide into our themes, tell us just briefly how you got started in the business, because I think while you provide financial planning for the categories that we talked about, I want our listeners to understand who you are and what kind of got you motivated to be in this industry.
Well, Chris, I think it sounds like I am in the industry for a lot of the same reasons that our other guest, Ed, is that I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction from helping people that have a dream of financial independence accomplish those goals. And my father, when he was living, was very careful about how he educated me around the value of money. And so I have this innate ability to kind of understand the problems that money solves and the problems that money creates. That's exactly right.
Or at least the people who hold the money.
And I just love talking to people about how to help them accomplish the goals that they have.
Well, that's great. And that's all I was looking for, just a little splash of who you are. And that, again, we all seem to be motivated in some ways toward the same thing. And we like to help people. And I think in our professionals, while we do get paid for what we do, there's a lot more to helping people and how it really feeds the spirit and really, feeds that desire to want to keep doing it and helping people make their lives better in our own respective industries. So good stuff. Awesome. So,
yes.
All right. So, Ed, are you ready, man?
I am.
Are you ready, man? All right. So it probably sounds a little scary, folks, that we came up with a Halloween theme, but with Halloween being tomorrow, it being kind of the time of year, we came up, Ed and I did a little planning here for the show, and we came up with our theme of tricks and treat to buying a home, okay? So we're really going to sort of highlight some of the things or tricks of the trade, if you will, in buying a home to make that process smooth, easy, simple, etc. So if you're just tuning in, you are listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, and we have a special guest, Ed Averette, here from Fathom Realty, a real estate agent, 10 years in the business. And we're going to be talking about real estate here, a topic of how to buy a home, really the tricks of the trade. And we've got Sandy Solomon here in the studio as well with Axe Advisors. If you hear anything of interest to you and you need me to connect you to either one of these great guys, my number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. So, Ed, let's kind of jump into our theme again, and it's tricks and treats to buying a home. So, what are some of the really tricks of the trade in order to obtain that treat, right, which is getting that home that you kind of want to start with on your list?
Well, number one, Chris, will be to get pre-qualified before you shop for a home.
Getting pre-qualified. Now, that doesn't sound like it does sound like a trick, but it's definitely not a treat, right?
Right.
I'm the mortgage guy that they usually call. And but what are some of the components of why it's important to have somebody pre-qualified?
Well, you don't want to look for a $300,000 house if you feel more comfortable with the payment on a $200,000 house.
Right. So understanding what they can qualify for and also what they want to afford.
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
cool. What's another component we want to make sure our listeners know about?
Waiting can lead to you missing out on a good house in our market. This is a very, very competitive market that we have here in Charlotte. So,
and that means for our listeners, if you haven't been watching or listening to our show, that means a good house that's on the market can sell literally in 24 hours and have 5 or 6 people trying to buy the same home. Absolutely. That's what you mean by that, right, Ed?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. So we actually have more to talk about under sort of the tricks of the trade here in terms of getting qualified so that people can have a good experience when they go to buy a home, Ed. But we are actually out of time for this segment. So we're going to take a quick break. Again, you are listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, and we are talking with Ed Averette from Fathom Realty. Today's topic is tricks and treat to buying a home. So please stay tuned. We've got a lot more to talk about. We'll be right back.
When choosing an insurance agency, you want a company you can trust. We are an independent insurance agency that can protect your personal assets, including your home, your business assets, as well as health and insurance needs. A true one-stop solution provider. We do not work for an insurance company. We work for you. As an independent insurance agency, our duty is to our clients' best interests. It is our responsibility to provide you the best service and the best coverage at the best possible price. You will have the added benefit of working with agents who understand your needs. After visiting our website, we will schedule an exploratory appointment to discuss your specific needs. Please visit our website at www.movementinsurance.com. That's www.movementinsurance.com.
Hey, Chris Reshaar here from Reshair Radio with Movement Mortgage. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender and MLS license number 117266.
Welcome back. You're listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, and we have special guest Ed Averette here in the studio. Live this morning here, we're talking about the tricks and the treat to buying a home. And we also have expert contributor who is really a regular on Reshair Radio, Sandy Solomon from Axe Advisors, and we're going to get back to you in your topic here a little bit later, Sandy. But if you've got anything you want to share about our themes and topic here, please jump in. So, Ed, we were just talking before the break, and one of the main tricks that you said to the home buying process is getting pre-qualified before you shop for a home. And I think that before is important. And you had mentioned, it's important to understand your price range, what you can afford. You had mentioned that it also may mean that if you're not pre-qualified, you might not get the house you want. But what are some of the other things that's why it's important to get qualified before they shop for a home?
Well, your credit score might scare you,
Ooh.
but we need to look at it in advance. You can't know where you're going unless you know where you're at. So a lot of prospects, they're scared to get their credit pulled or to see what their credit score is, but it's a part of the process we have to do.
It is, and you know what? I always find that it's better that you're brave, you take a look. It doesn't cost anything, at least from the mortgage side. Unless you buy the home, the credit report is free. Now, if you end up buying the home, you'll pay when you go to sign the paperwork. The $30, $50 or whatever it might be, right? But it doesn't cost anything up front to kind of take a look, especially if you know things are a little scary, right?
Correct.
And let us put you on a path to home ownership, and I'll do an evaluation. If not, I'll send my team at National Credit Care, Adam Kunda, who is also a regular expert contributor of Reshair Radio. We got a team of people waiting in line to help people, get those errors off the report and just kind of give good counsel around that. So don't be scared, right? And then you've got one other thought around getting pre-qualified that you wanted to share with our listeners.
All right. Yes, you need to have someone to look at your credit. So there's no way around that. So we definitely need to have that pulled.
And isn't it amazing that people will go and try to invest in the biggest investment most likely of their lifetime, and they say, but don't look at my credit. And I go, well, it's really kind of important that we look at your credit now that you want to borrow $300,000 or $200,000. And, people generally, they want to protect their credit. I totally get that. But when you go to buy a home, and you've seen it before, Ed, too, right? They call you up, say, I want to see this house. You say, are you pre-qualified? They say, well, but I don't want anyone to look at my credit. I want to see the house first, right? And you're going, nope. We're not doing that, right? Sellers don't put up with that anymore. And a good buyer's agent with 10 years experience is also going to say, no, you got to take that leap of faith, have your credit looked at, get pre-qualified, so that they can have a good experience, because there are times when we are surprised, right? There are ghosts that show up on that credit report, and we got to deal with them. And sometimes it's we find stuff will just need to be fixed. So very good. All right. So I think we hit number one, and that was get qualified up front in one of the tricks, if you will. What's trick number 2 we've got on the list?
Number 2, work with an experienced realtor. You don't want to go to court without an attorney. So
why would you buy a house without a realtor?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what, the reason is, and I don't think people realize that a realtor like you, if you help somebody buy a home, that buyer doesn't pay the commission. Do you think they know that?
I don't think so. I think they think it's going to come out of their pocket and it's going to cost them a lot of money, but it doesn't.
Right. So if you're a newer buyer and you haven't ever dealt in the real estate industry, Ed, you do make a commission. You make a certain percentage, and we're not here to talk about the percentage, but the seller pays your commission when they agree to sell that home and list it on the market, right?
Absolutely.
They've already set aside a percentage that they're willing to pay you and the agent that's selling their home.
Correct.
So if you're a buyer, you wouldn't want to go into court without an attorney. You don't want to go buy a home without a realtor. It's someone who's got your back, who's going to represent you, that doesn't cost you anything. And they might even buy you coffee or lunch, right, Ed?
Yes.
You spend a lot of time with people, you end up hanging and eating with them too, I'm sure, right? But let's talk about some of the reasons why, outside of that, what about negotiating? Do you think a realtor is going to, what are the stats around that?
Yeah, so you don't want to negotiate for yourself, so it's good to have the professionals negotiate for you, whether that's closing costs or
the price on
the home. And you just need some help there, because a lot of we had a situation the other day, Chris, where we had someone that wasn't represented, and they had an issue with
You're absolutely right.
the price on a house that didn't appraise. So if they would have had a realtor, then we could have.
Yeah, we were planning the show, and a buyer called in and said, should have used a realtor. Home didn't appraise, and now the builder is giving me a hard time, and they're saying I have to pay $10,000 above the appraised value, and he just was kind of disappointed in himself that he didn't do it the right way, and that was all unfolding right when we were kind of prepping for our show. So you're right, that was an interesting example, and I think really at the end of the day, to your point, a realtor's got the buyer's best interest at heart. So working with an experienced realtor is trick number 2 to get you down to the treat of buying a home. So. All right, so if you're just tuning in, you are listening to Reshair Radio. I am your show host, and we're talking about the tricks and the treat to buying a home. Our theme for today, we've got Halloween showing up tomorrow. We'll have our doorbells ringing like nuts, I'm sure. But if you find something that's of interest to you, I want you to call me. I want you to text me. Text me is actually the easiest way to get me. It's 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. And all you got to do is say, I need Ed because you need a good realtor, or I need to get qualified, Chris. I need your help. and just shoot me a quick text, and I will make sure at the beginning of the week that we reach out to you and we kind of get you help through some of these tricks to the trade so that you can have a good buying experience. All right, Ed, let's jump to number 3, our number 3 trick.
All right. Educate yourself with some of the local programs, including down payment assistance, in advance of finding a home.
Yeah, isn't it frustrating when you go under contract and then the customer comes back and says, I just learned about this great program and I really want this. And then you go, well, you're not eligible for that program because the house isn't in the right part of town, or you're in the wrong state, or, right? So there are so many great programs out there that people can get connected with, and that's what we're here to help with, right, Ed?
Right.
They can chat with me. They can chat with you. I've got a whole program guide for first-time buyers, and it lists about 10 or 12 different programs, all in one nice little PowerPoint slide presentation. All they got to do is let me know. I drop an email over to them. So if you're interested in some of the local programs, including down payment assistance or no money down programs, they exist. In fact, the state of North Carolina Housing Finance Agency right now has a $15,000 down payment assistance program for first-time buyers. Yes, you heard that right. $15,000 they're giving away if you're a first-time buyer. There are a lot of other restrictions. We can go through them after hours, but text me or call me if you are interested in buying a home. You can use Ed to help you find the home. You can use me to help you get qualified. $15,000 is out on the table. We want to see if you're eligible. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. All right, let's go to number 4.
All right, number 4, get pre-approved versus getting pre-qualified.
All right, so that's my department really more than yours, but really that just means once you're qualified, we're going to send a list of everything that you need to do to get rolling. We want to submit your documentation, have an underwriter look at it. It's free of charge, helps you to avoid surprises, and at the end of the day, Ed, wouldn't you say it's going to help you better negotiate?
Absolutely. It looks better to the seller that you have an approved loan, pre-approved loan versus a pre-qualified loan. So
absolutely. It's just smart. So cool. Let's roll to number 5 trick.
Number 5, get to know the community you want to buy in early in the process, not after the fact.
Right. So you mean after I go under contract, you don't want your buyer to say, I think I found another house in another community on the other side of town?
No.
And can we start the search all over again?
No.
But, I think that includes, it's time for them to look at schools, how far the area that they like is, close to their work, crime statistics, and even amenities for certain neighborhoods. All of that can kind of be done by driving around on weekends before they get super serious and really just doing some research. All right, so let's go to number 6. What's the 6th trick of the trade here?
Don't freak out over the inspection report. Ooh.
Don't freak out over the inspection report. Absolutely. That is actually a big area that I see, and I'm sure you do too. That, a home inspection is where, if you use Home Inspection Carolina, Preston Sandlin, he is known all over the city of Charlotte. He is also an expert contributor on Reshair Radio. His team will go out and do a home inspection. And their job is to try to find as much wrong with the house as possible and give you a nice big fat list. And then that same list that he's using to protect you can scare you, right? But this job is to make sure everything gets overturned, every stone gets looked under. But it doesn't mean that there's really major problems. Is that right?
Yes. And in most cases, it's just to make you aware of what's going on with the house. So there's some items that you won't be able to see when you're walking through, so it just gives you visibility. But there is no perfect house. Even though we want it to be perfect, there is no perfect house out there.
So I think the bottom line there is if the listener or the potential buyer needs to expect that there's going to be a healthy list of things on it, but you're going to help them as the buyer's agent determine which ones are a big deal, which ones are not, and in some cases, you would renegotiate with the seller to get a few of those things fixed or addressed.
Absolutely.
So if you know up front, don't freak out. It's just kind of one of those things that no matter what, when you look at it kind of scares you, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. So let's go with the last step or the last trick of the trade is to be patient. What do you mean by be patient?
Well, lending is rarely fun. There's always more paperwork. Sometimes you have to send over the same paperwork in some cases. But when they ask for it, just trust them on it. Just send it and do not argue.
That's right. I wish I could have you say that with a couple of my buyers I'm working with right now. It's amazing. We know what we're doing in the mortgage business, and it's amazing how so many people will just say, well, why are you asking for that? Or why do you need that? Or I gave you my bank statement last month. Well, you have a new statement. We have to have a new one if you want to buy this home. And so a lot of times we're just trying to meet the investor's requirements, and it's same across lender to lender to lender. So the more that you cooperate, the better experience that the buyer will have. So, well, man, we got through our list of 7 tricks. And what is that treat, man? The treat is you become a homeowner and we make you, an American dream come true, really.
Right. You get the keys.
You get the keys. So we are out of time for this segment, but please stay tuned. We've got Sandy Solomon up next on deck. Again, you're listening to Reshair Radio. We'll be right back.
Sports fans know that the key to winning the big game is going in prepared. Right now, houses are selling fast. So if you're in the market for a new home purchase, don't just be prepared, be Movement Mortgage prepared. Charlotte's leading mortgage lender, Chris Reshatar at Movement Mortgage will tee you up with a free, fully underwritten, upfront pre-approval. Shop for the home of your dreams, already backed by an upfront pre-approval at Movement Mortgage. Call Chris today at 704-277-4463 or find Chris at www.themortgagegenius.com. Go into the game prepared with Chris Reshatar of Movement Mortgage.
This is Chris Reshatar, your host of Reshair Radio. As a mortgage professional, we interact with several industry-related professionals, and we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. When I have a choice to select a closing attorney either to purchase or do a refinance, I choose John Ringer with Hutchins Law Firm. He is a legal professional and he covers commercial and residential transactions. More than just a closing attorney, John wants to be your attorney for life. He can provide you insights you need to make accurate and informed legal decisions. As a Charlotte native, John has witnessed the tremendous growth and development of our city and region. As a part of Hutchins Law Firm with more than a quarter century of experience and 400 years of collective combined legal experience, they have what you're looking for. They have offices in Charlotte, Fayetteville, Wilmington, and Columbia, South Carolina. Please give John a call if you need an attorney, the right attorney, at 980-275-9810. That's 980-275-9810.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage, NMLS license number 117266. I don't even know my license number, folks. But I'd like to just kind of bring you up to speed. We've been talking with Ed Averette from Fathom Realty, and we just talked about the tricks and the treat to buying a home. And now we've got up on deck here Sandy Solomon live in the studio from AXA Advisors. And Sandy, we've got a great show for you, or at least a great topic, I believe, planned for the latter half of Reshair here this morning. And we're really going to kind of dive into IRAs. And we're going to look at some different kinds of retirement accounts. So I'd like you to kind of get us started. I know you've got some fun disclosures to go through because we're really talking really deep financial stuff. But let's get started on understanding, the different types of retirement accounts and IRAs. So jump in, man.
Well, thank you, Chris. I really enjoyed listening to the first segment with you and Ed, and I'd like to just have the listeners know that I've experienced the joys of home ownership here in Charlotte for quite a long while, and it is one of the cornerstones of financial independence, and so I'd encourage all the listeners
Let's get buy-in.
Seriously consider owning their home. And Chris, you mentioned disclosures because today we're going to be talking about the types of accounts that people often choose to save for retirement. Those accounts might involve the investment of some funds in the future, so it's important that we have some disclosures. As you know, we work in a very carefully regulated industry, and so the first thing I'd share is that the purpose of the show today is to educate our listeners in a general way and not to provide specific tax or legal advice. The second thing is that any examples that you hear on the show this morning or any discussion will be based on our current understanding of the federal tax law and all of the interpretations of the law. And these examples are always hypothetical. They're not a guarantee of any performance or an endorsement of any particular product or any specific investment or insurance contract or other financial product. The examples don't take into account the impact of fees or the possibility of taxes. and the listener should always seek the advice of a financial professional, tax advisor, or attorney about their specific situation. If any of the listeners want to get in touch with us, I'm a representative of AXA Advisors, LLC, New York, New York. Our phone number is 212-314-4600, and we are a member of FINRA and the SIPC.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Could you repeat that?
Chris, I'll repeat it in the second part of the program if you'd like me to.
I'm just teasing there. So let's really kind of go into our topic, and I appreciate you sharing that. We've got to get that out of the table because we do want to make sure that our listeners understand that we are professionals and we work for very respected industries and companies that really have interest in being right and compliant and doing the right thing for people and our listeners. So great. So let's kind of go into our topic here. So what is an IRA and why should our listeners really pay attention to this? And, tell me more.
Absolutely, Chris. IRAs have been on the scene since 1974. I've been around long enough to remember when IRAs were enacted into law by the ERISA Act of 1974, which is the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And this was a way of encouraging more retirement saving by Americans. The tax code is a tool that Congress can use to encourage certain types of economic behavior and economic activity, hence the IRA, and that's often referred to as an individual retirement account, but I think originally the term was an acronym for an individual retirement arrangement.
That sounds like a Jeopardy question.
Indeed, yes. But the key point here is that it's an account that's intended as a retirement savings tool to be used by individuals rather than groups.
Got it. Okay, cool. Anything else you want to share on that particular topic, or you got it under wraps there?
Well, I think we probably ought to take a moment to talk about what makes IRAs special as opposed to other kinds of savings vehicles that listeners might be encouraged to use. And it always has to do with the way that we pay taxes on investments as individuals. There are certain details and qualification requirements for IRAs. But for some of our listeners, an IRA can be a great way to save because of the possibility of favorable tax treatment both now and in the future. And that's something that we'll talk more about during the show today.
Okay. Got it. So this all sounds pretty motivating. So let's take a minute and talk about the different kinds of IRAs that people ask about.
But let's do that. But before we do that, let me share just a quick example for some of our younger listeners, because some of our younger listeners might be tempted to think that they can kind of easily afford to put off saving for retirement, maybe use that money for lifestyle improvement or something like that instead. But So listen to this, guys. If a 30-year-old starts saving now for retirement and saves $100 a week, and let's just say that they do that until they're 65 years old. If that account were to earn an 8% rate of return before taxes, the value of that account, now this is $100 a week, this is probably going to astonish some of the listeners, would be $811,391 at age 65. And even at a 6% return,
I'll take that, but go ahead.
Yeah, that could be good. Yeah. At a 6% rate of return, the value of that account would still be $435,039. So we do need to remember that inflation impacts the purchasing power of this money, and taxes will reduce the values later depending on what tax rates are in the future. But still, I think those numbers are pretty eye-opening, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And, I think one of the reasons that we're really talking about IRAs, we're really defining them and helping the listener understand what they are. But again, I feel like as the host of this show, there's not enough people really taking advantage of some of the retirement vehicles, whether it's an individual retirement account or whether it's a 401k, whether it's a Roth IRA, all these different things. We throw them around, we pretend like we know them, but not everybody's really doing it, right? And so if I can be a catalyst, Sandy, you can be a catalyst, and even you, Ed, here in the studio, if we can all be a catalyst to help somebody step into a retirement vehicle or start saving and motivate them to do something different than they did before they listened to our show, isn't that what this is all about, right? Helping impact somebody's life in their future and how they move into that future based on their savings. So, all right, so this is all pretty exciting stuff. That sounds like some good numbers that you shared, but I really want to take a minute and make sure that our listeners understand the Roth IRA, because that is a term, not Roth, but Roth IRA. But that's a term that people throw around, and it, really, tell us more about that, Sandy.
Absolutely. As we start to talk about the nuances, the difference between different kinds of IRAs, it might be helpful to the listeners to understand that I think of an IRA not as a particular kind of an investment, but as a particular kind of an investment account.
Okay.
And so if an investment account were a jar, this would be a label. And the label tells the IRS how this money is going to be treated from a tax perspective, both now and later.
Okay.
And so the first kind of IRA is the traditional IRA. That's a regular IRA. And the main difference has to do with how the contributions are treated from a tax perspective. And so with a traditional IRA, the contributions may be allowed to go in before tax, or you'll hear that referred to as pre-tax.
Pre-tax, that's
pre-tax,
right.
That's exactly right. That's an important benefit, which means that the taxes will be due when the funds are withdrawn. Hopefully, and typically that
and
may
you
mean
pay
during
less
retirement.
taxes now in your paycheck.
That's correct. You don't pay taxes on the current income that's deposited into the IRA, assuming, of course, that you qualify.
Right.
And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So the Roth IRA, and this is a very common question, is actually just the opposite. So the traditional IRA, the contributions are pre-tax and the withdrawals later are taxable. The Roth IRA is just the opposite. The contributions are after tax now, but qualified withdrawals in the future should be free of tax. And I've heard this benefit described by some people as an analogy would be paying tax on the seeds rather than paying tax on the crop.
Right, paying tax on the seed while it's smaller than the big fat crop at the end.
Yes, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Yes. And of course, certain rules apply that we'll talk more about.
Right. Well, that's cool. And I mean, I think that's important because, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. But I think really at the end of the day, while we're educating about IRAs, this goes right back to where we started the show, and that is working with a financial advisor like you can help somebody determine whether they want to do one, the other, or maybe even a combination
of the two.
Right.
It's possible that they might do that.
Absolutely. And I know my personal financial life, my wife and I are doing both. We're doing a combination of both. So, all right, cool. So let's talk about who's eligible. Well, bear with me for just a quick second here. Go ahead and talk to me about who is eligible to contribute to an IRA or a Roth IRA.
Absolutely, Chris. So in order to be able to talk about eligibility requirements, we have to be specific and talk about that in relation to which type of account. So let's talk about the traditional IRA plan first.
Okay.
So the only criteria for being eligible to contribute is having the money to do so, is having sufficient income is all that's required for eligibility to contribute to a traditional IRA. However, there is a provision in the tax code that allows for tax deductibility, and there are some strict eligibility requirements based on income and your filing status and whether or not, as an individual, you have access to another retirement account, probably sponsored by your employer, and that might be something like a 401k.
All right. So really what you're saying is obviously there are rules that apply. And if you've got a 401k plan with your employer, then what you can do in your IRA may be impacted, right?
That is correct. That's correct. And so according to the IRS, if you're married and you're filing jointly, they call it the phase-out range. The range for tax deductibility is between $98,000 and $118,000 for couples in 2016. If you're a single taxpayer, you can't make more than $71,000 and also deduct your contributions. And again, there's a phase-out range, and that's between $61,000 and $71,000. And so generally, IRAs do work best if the contributions are pre-tax. However, everybody's situation is different, and you should see your tax professional for details on what's best for your situation.
Perfect. And Sandy, this is a great time to take a quick break. You've been listening to Sandy Solomon, AXA advisor, talking about IRAs here on our show today. Again, I'm Chris Reshatar with Reshair Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We got more to talk about on these IRAs, folks. I know you need to be doing it, so listen up.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home or buying a new car or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar. I am a licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. Movement is an equal housing lender, and my license number is 117266. Occasionally I get that backwards, but I got it right this time. If you have not been listening to our show here today, we've got in the studio here this morning Sandy Solomon, a financial planner from AXA Advisor, and your titles go out a yard long. I don't even know if I got it right, Sandy, but bear with me. But really, more importantly, we've been talking about IRAs, understanding what they are and some of the components. I think this is really great information, Sandy, that we've been sharing earlier in the show. But I'd like you to jump back in and keep it rolling in terms of, who is eligible for an IRA and, kind of what direction we're headed there. But I believe you've got some disclosures you want to make sure if they haven't tuned in, they need to hear your disclosures.
Yeah, just for the listeners that are just now tuning in, Chris, or maybe even as a reminder for listeners that have been with us on the whole show, that the purpose of our discussion today is to provide general education, and that this discussion is based on current federal income tax law and interpretations of that law, and that any examples are hypothetical and are no guarantee of performance or an endorsement of any product. AXA Advisors is located in New York, and our number is 212-314-4600. We're a member of FINRA and the SIPC. So let's get back, Chris, to IRAs and who's eligible and who might contribute. What we've noticed is that IRAs work very well for self-employed people that have the capability of saving up to about $5,500 each year, which is currently the federal limit. And if you're my age, if you're age 50 or older, and I'm a bit older than 50 now, the IRS does allow...
Not much.
Not much. The IRS allows a catch-up contribution. So if you're 50 or older, you can contribute another $1,000 each year. So at age 50, you're allowed to contribute about $541 a month to an individual retirement arrangement.
Okay, cool. And that is, particularly for people who have waited, that becomes very important to get that money in there, because every year passes, they're losing that opportunity, right?
That's exactly right.
So cool. So those are important details. What else? What about like self-employed people? How does that work for them?
Well, self-employed people can use IRAs too, but there's a third kind of IRA that's designed specifically with self-employed people and small business owners in mind, and some may qualify for this particular kind of an IRA, and it's called a SEP, or a Simplified Employee Pension, which is kind of a super IRA, and there the contribution limits, or the amount of money that the taxpayer can put into the account, rather than be based on a strict limit of, say, $5,500 a year, the tax law permits employers to contribute a percentage of their income, not a flat amount, but a percentage, and they can contribute that money for themselves and also on behalf of their employees. So SEPs have some requirements that mandate a contribution for employees, and they're probably more ideal maybe for small partnerships or sole proprietors. We see a lot of SEP plans in nonprofits and professional practices like dental offices and medical practices. So that's a simplified employee pension.
And I appreciate you sharing that because I know people who are what I call mom and pop self-employed business owners, and they don't often know that they can invest in their own retirement through these SEPs that you had mentioned. And it's just interesting. And again, if there's somebody out there, someone that's listening to our show that's self-employed, that maybe you're doing pretty well, there are options for you to reinvest money into your retirement through some of these plans that Sandy is talking about. And what better time than now to give me a call or shoot me a text message and say, I need Sandy. I need to talk with Sandy. I need to sit down with him. He's more than happy to spend, his personal time, work time, whatever you want to call it, do an analysis of your situation and determine what investments might work from you. Again, the show is not about guaranteeing results over the air. We're really just sharing examples and educating what IRAs are, what types that are offered, and even the SEP plan that Sandy just discussed. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. All right, Sandy, let's kind of go back to the IRA for just a couple minutes. And I hear people talking about that there's often enough, in terms of, I apologize, they just need more information about, what taxpayers are paying on that and how it works for them.
Okay. So we didn't really get into the eligibility requirements for the Roth IRA, Chris, and so I imagine the listeners would probably like to hear something about that. So the Roth IRA is a pretty special arrangement for taxpayers that qualify, and here's the reason why. The money goes into a Roth after tax, but if it's handled correctly, we now have the possibility of many years of compound growth, and qualified withdrawals can come out of Roth IRAs without the burden of any further tax or any tax on the capital gain. So it's important to remember that there are no taxes being paid on the funds while they're in the account, and we refer to that as tax deferral, and that benefit is also available from a traditional IRA.
And I'm just breaking this down. When I hear people talk about the traditional Roth IRA, I hear people talking about, but the taxes you'll pay at the end, or even sometimes they refer to that, the taxes you'll pay on the 401k, they can really sting you. So you've got to be careful. You've got to think that through. I think that's one of the reasons why that Roth option can be very valuable, because you're not paying taxes at the end. You just get to withdraw the money and enjoy the growth that hopefully was achieved over the time that it's been invested.
Chris, when you postpone paying taxes, you postpone not only paying the tax, but also the tax calculation. And so one of the benefits of a Roth IRA is, depending on what your current filing status is, that you can peg the cost of your taxes now rather than waiting to find out what they might be later.
Right. Okay, cool. So let's say I decide to make an investment, and we kind of now know that an IRA is a good choice because of the tax benefits. What else do I need to know?
Well, that's a really important question. And Chris, the answer is always going to depend on some really important variables, and it might be quite different for some individuals than others based on their goals and their investment experience and the time horizon they have for the money to remain invested, and also their tolerance for investment risk, as we call it, or the volatility of the account. So since an IRA is an account and not an investment, the monies can be invested in anything that the custodian allows. So an example is, for instance, if your IRA happened to be at a bank, they may allow a CD. Or if your IRA is at a brokerage house, they may allow stocks and bonds or mutual funds. An insurance company can be a custodian, and they might allow some kind of an annuity. So careful consideration should be given to the types of investments selected. One thing to look for when seeking assistance with your IRA is what type of education and analysis is available. Many clients will end up with more than one bucket, I call it, of investment savings, or more than one type of investment account. So it's important to know and understand exactly what's in each one of these buckets.
Perfect. Just tell me a little more about that bucket idea. This kind of sounds cool.
Well, I thought you'd ask me about that. It's a common analogy that we use in the financial planning business a lot, because we know that people mentally segregate their investments based on the goals that they have. So an example would be maybe one bucket contains savings for something that's midterm, like the purchase of a home as an example, or some luxury item like a new car. Some buckets may pertain more to funds set aside for the education of your kids or for your own financial independence. So we talk about this bucket idea in relation to doing planning for people. And the buckets are always differentiated by the purpose that they serve. And it's usually suggested, you've heard this before, not to put all your eggs in one bucket. That's right.
Bucket.
Don't put all your money in one investment account. And the advice to diversify is very, very important.
Perfect. And we had talked a little bit about before when we've been visiting and planning the show, you have this four-legged stool concept. Why don't you just take a quick minute and tell us about that, and we got to wrap up the show.
Absolutely, Chris. So the idea comes from my experience helping people organize and prepare their financial plans or their plans for financial independence. And that term I use instead of calling it retirement per se, because I don't think our younger audience necessarily relate to the idea of retirement. They don't necessarily like the idea of porch sitting. It doesn't resonate with this group. So the four-legged stool of financial independence starts first, and I know Ed's going to appreciate this. Part A is a plan to own your home mortgage-free. Mm-hmm. It's critical that you don't have rent that's continuous, ongoing, always rising.
Hanging over you forever.
That's
Got it.
Exactly right.
Okay.
The second leg of the stool is to make sure that you're managing your important risks. And those risks are typically like the risks of death or disability. Then you have the third leg of the stool would be having a suitable retirement savings plan that can be converted to income in retirement, like an IRA potentially. And then finally having liquidity for entertainment and emergencies. In other words, having an emergency fund.
That's right.
Cash
Have an
on
emergency fund. And if you take one leg away, what happens? It falls apart, right?
That's why
or
they
falls
call it
over.
Four-legged stool.
Four-legged stool. So, and, at the end of the day, I know our listeners need somebody like you to help them plan. You are amazing. We appreciate what you've shared with us today and hope that our listeners will give me a call or shoot me a text message. The number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. For you guys here that have been in the studio, I want to thank you for coming out. Ed, I know that you've got a special little offer that you'd like to share with our Reshair listeners that are looking to maybe buy or sell a home here in the near future.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to point out, Sandy, great value. We're always taught to work hard, but a lot of us don't know how to save up money and have our money working for us. The takeaway, 20% for any public servant. That
20% of your commission you're going to give back. Commission. That's huge, folks.
Any hometown hero, any public servant, that wants to buy or sell a house, I will offer that to them. And if you're not a public servant, $500 rebate to you at closing.
Perfect. Awesome. So, and Sandy, of course, you're always going to offer your free consultation to meet with anybody that has finances that they may want to have looked over, whether they are investing into, the market or looking into individual retirement accounts or whatever. That's what you do. That's what you're good at. So
we would welcome the listeners to give us a call.
Yeah. Text me, call me, say, I need Sandy, I need Ed, whatever it might be. The number again is 704-277-4463. It's 704-277-4463. It's been great having you guys on the show. We'll be back for another week of Reshair Radio next Sunday at 10 o'clock. Have a great one. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris Reshair here from Reshair Radio with Movement Mortgage. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender and MLS license number 117266.
When choosing an insurance agency, you want a company you can trust. We are an independent insurance agency that can protect your personal assets, including your home, your business assets, as well as health and insurance needs. A true one-stop solution provider. We do not work for an insurance company. We work for you. As an independent insurance agency, our duty is to our clients' best interests. It is our responsibility to provide you the best service and the best coverage at the best possible price. You will have the added benefit of working with agents who understand your needs. After visiting our website, we will schedule an exploratory appointment to discuss your specific needs. Please visit our website at www.movementinsurance.com. That's www.movementinsurance.com.
You've been listening to Reshair with Chris Reshatar, a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender. Originator license number 117266. Learn more online at themortgagegenius.com.